What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Today, we've got 5 must draft wide receivers. I'm actually going to make the top 5 total wide receivers and rankings ineligible for this video. It should go without saying that, Cooper Kupp, Chase, Jefferson, Adams, Diggs, they're all great picks. All the wide receivers you can get in the first few rounds are fantastic picks. I thought it would be a lot more helpful to highlight more of the middle and late rounds, and this one with a more heavy focus on the middle rounds because, well, that's the range we know is really beneficial to target the wide receiver position. So that's going to be more of the focus of this video. So only looking at that place in the drafts, here are my 5 favorite picks, assuming current ADPs. Remember, things change. Always check the rankings for the latest updates on that, but assuming current ADPs. First up, Amon-Ra St. Now that Mike Williams is appropriately valued, he would have absolutely made this list 2 weeks ago. But as his ADP has climbed, now he's at appropriate value. And that's why, we want to keep staying up to date with current ADPs. Now that that has happened, it's Amon-Ra St. I think it's the player we have 4th on this list today, are the most undervalued. I feel like people are overweighing the impact that Jameson Williams is going to have, at least with how it relates to the value of St. Brown. I agree that when healthy, Williams was probably the best wide receiver in this class, and he deserves to be heavily used in the offense. But even I don't think that happens right away to open the season, and even if it did, how much do we really care? Jameson Williams is not going to go out there and turn to some target hog, gaining, 10, 11, 12 targets per game. He's going to be used heavily on deep balls. They're going to design plays to feature his speed, but he plays a completely different role than St. Brown. They're not sending St. Brown on a bunch of 50-yard routes downfield. They're not trying to utilize his elite speed. St. Brown doesn't have elite speed. They're different players. St. Brown's going to operate much closer to the line of scrimmage, and he's going to be someone we can expect to maintain a very large target share. And I don't want us to forget what he did to close last season. 6 straight games with at least 10 targets, at least 8 receptions in each week in that stretch, at least 85 and a touchdown in 5 of the last 6 games. As soon as they started giving him snaps, he produced really well. Only 6 other rookie wide receivers have ever posted a stat line in their rookie season of 90 for 905 or better. So again, I know Jameson Williams is fantastic. He's an elite talent. But don't overlook how good St. Brown was in his rookie year. And also, I'm not projecting him to even improve. I'm projecting him to be worse. He was really good last season. He way outproduced this current ADP. I'm projecting him to drop in target share, touchdown share, catch rate, all those by at least 2% each. And even that, he grades out way better than his current ADP. I really think his ADP is lower because no one wants to trust the Lions offense. And so they're taking the easy out and they're being like, oh, well, new wide receiver in town. They're bringing in Chark as if Chark was a threat to St. Brown. They're bringing all these guys in, people are getting healthy. I don't like the offense. I'm out. And no one wants to draft him. But I actually love what the team was able to do last season. And I do trust the staff now that it's no longer run by Matt Patricia, right? So I'm grabbing St. Brown in a ton of leagues, grabbing him in a ton of underdog drafts before his ADP goes up because I think he's a fantastic value right now. Next up, Gabriel Davis. Davis will be entering his 3rd season in the NFL, but just turned 23 this April, which actually makes him younger than Jalen Tolbert. The exact same age to the day, kind of funny. They share the exact same birthday, same year as Danny Gray. And then he's a month older than Christian Watson. And none of those guys have had 200 yards and 4 touchdowns in an NFL playoff game, right? Gabriel Davis he's just set up to explode this season. He's the clear-cut wide receiver 2 on what I'm projecting to be the best offense in the NFL, at least from a passing standpoint. Buffalo lost 184 targets after Sanders and Beasley left. And even though I think that Crowder and Shakir are really, really good additions, I love those additions to the team, they're not commanding 184 targets. I also love those 2 additions for Davis just because it really locks in his snaps. Crowder, Isaiah McKenzie's still on the team, Shakir, they're more slot receivers than guys that are going to consistently win on the outside. Davis lost snaps to Emmanuel Sanders last season because Sanders can play on the outside, and he kind of commanded those snaps over Davis at times. And that prevented Davis from going over 55% of snaps in any game until week 14. But from that point on, he scored a touchdown in 4 of his last 6 weeks, including 8 total touchdowns, while averaging 7.5 targets per game. And I know a 6-game sample is way too small to trust, but just think about it logically. If we know that he's going to be on the field as the consistent number 2 on the outside, that is going to happen on one of the best offenses in football. And if he's going to be on the field, not even 100% of the time, let's just say 80 to 90%, even though it's probably going to be 90+%. With Stephon Diggs on the other side, so he's never going to see top coverage from a team's top corner. He's never going to be double teamed. He should be a 5th-round pick. Like, he just should be. And I doubt his ADP ever gets that high because people are going to have a difficult time with a player that has been a sleeper last 2 seasons, hasn't necessarily produced high numbers in the regular season, and a player that you've always been able to get, in like easily double-digit rounds. No one's going to be seeing him in the 5th round and be like, got to get Gabriel Davis. People just aren't going to be able to do that mentally, and so he's the 27th wide receiver off boards right now. That's a great value. 3rd wide receiver, we'll go over today, Courtland Sutton. I want pieces of this Denver offense, and right now, Sutton is the easiest way to do that, besides, I guess, Tim Patrick, but I'm going to save him for a late round video specifically, but know that I still love Tim Patrick. I feel like a lot of people just don't realize it, but like Sutton's been good, right? He's been really good when healthy in his career. He's had a very unfortunate luck when it came to like the timing of his injury. But look at his rookie season, 42 for 704 and 4 touchdowns. That's a really solid stat line for rookie. It wasn't Amon-Ra St. Brown, but it was good. That's a good season, especially when, Case Keenum is your starting quarterback. Then he breaks out in year 2, 72 for 1,112 yards, 6 touchdowns, before unfortunately tearing his ACL in year 3. He follows that up, 58, 776, and 2 touchdowns last season, catching passes from Bridgewater and Drew Lock. As you will hear me say plenty of times this summer, the talent gap between the Keenum, Bridgewater, Locks of the world and Russell Wilson is insane. It is bigger, in my opinion, than the gap between Goff and Stafford, even though that's a huge gap. And we saw, the things that was able to do for the Rams last season, going from a mediocre quarterback in Goff to Stafford. That offense looked completely different. They looked fantastic. Again, I think this is a bigger gap going from the Keenum, Bridgewater, Locks of the world to Russell Wilson. This Denver offense is going to be elite, and Sutton has a chance for a monster season. He also has the size to be a massive red zone threat, and he might have a higher ceiling than Jeudy. Overall, I'm just going to try, because I like Jeudy as well, I'm just going to try and get a piece of this offense on every team, and that's likely, since I'm targeting wide receiver in the middle rounds, that likely is going to have me looking at Sutton, looking at Jeudy, and saying, okay, whoever's left, really, whoever I can get as a really good value, that's the one I want. More often than not, that is going to be Sutton. People are just going to take Jerry Jeudy earlier. He was, a higher end prospect. He's the more exciting talent. But I don't think there's a ton separating these two. So again, I'm probably just going to wait it out, see if I can get one of them at a really good value. If it happens to be that Sutton goes and then like a round passes and Judy's still on the board, I'll go with Jeudy. I don't want to just shout out Sutton in this video, but more often than not, like I said before, Jeudy goes, maybe a round goes by, then it's Sutton, and I want to be grabbing Sutton at that value. Current projection, 78 receptions, little under 1,100 yards and 6.8 touchdowns. That does not feel overly aggressive for how good I think this offense will be, and even that has him undervalued by multiple wide receiver spots. Grab him if you can. 4th on the list, Hunter Renfrow. He's coming off the board as the wide receiver 41, despite finishing 11th overall last season and 19th in points per game, right between DK Metcalf and CD Lamb. He had 103 receptions, over 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. thanks in large part to an absolute heater. Weeks 12 through 14 averaged 10 receptions for 117 yards per game. Also, the touchdowns weren't fluky. I think people think they were because, you look at pictures of Hunter Renfrow and you're like, there's no way this dude's scoring a lot of touchdowns, right? But he is a fantastic short yardage route runner. And so when they get into the red zone, they did look his way a lot because he's incredible at creating separation early, creating separation close to the line of scrimmage. And so if you're close to the goal line, you've got a player like that who's not really going to see double teams. Yeah, feature them. I mean, he was tied for 5th among all players in red zone targets last season, while ranking 4th just behind Devonta Adams with 13 targets inside the 10-yard line. But it's that name that's going to give people pause. Renfrow has a low ADP because Adams is now on the team. And that makes sense, right? He should not be going where he was last season in terms of his production. So yeah, he's not going to be the 11th wide receiver off boards, but 41 is a pretty drastic fall. I mean, 41 last season is like AJ Green and Marquez Callaway range. He's going to be better than AJ Green and Marquez Callaway from last season. I gave him a 17% target share and a 19% share of the team's receiving touchdowns. Both of those rates are lower than Adams by 7 and 10% respectively. Both of those rates are lower than Darren Waller by 2 and 3% respectively. So even having him as the clear third option in the passing game with a final projection of 88 for 895 and 5.5 touchdowns, which I think is extremely fair. He comes in as a fantastic value, either the first or the second most undervalued when compared to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Are we really scared about Keelan Cole and Demarcus Robinson? Those guys are not going to command a heavy target share. This offense should be heavily concentrated between those top 3 targets, a little bit to the running backs, but a lot of the targets are going to 3 players. And again, it's the same situation with other players we talked about. Or is he really going to see, he can't see double teams when he's operating in the slot, but they're never going to be shifting focus to Hunter Renfrow. Never. Adams is the very clear number 1 target on this team, but defenses know that. They're going to have to go heavy at him. It's going to leave a lot of space for Darren Waller and for Hunter Renfrow. He is being undervalued right now. It is a crazy price tag. Wide receiver 41. He's worth way more than that. Final wide receiver I'll talk about today is actually a group of wide receivers that you guys will probably hate, and it's the Giants. I know I've talked about them plenty, but as a group, I think you just got to be leaving your draft with one of these guys. Tony, Galladay, Robinson, ADPs for wide receivers of 53, 57, and 85. So effectively, Byron Pringle and DeAndre Carter from last season. They're all free, every single one of them, despite all the positive aspects we've talked about this offseason. Brian Dable and Mike Kafka are major coaching upgrades, especially for the passing game. And Daniel Jones isn't a bad quarterback. He's just had, unfortunate luck with injuries. He's had to deal with awful coaching. He's been put in position to fail just by what's been around him. The entire offense has just fallen apart every season, it seems. Now, I don't know what this final target share is going to look like. I really don't. Heck, I don't even know if Tony's going to be on the team. I just don't know. But there's value here in guessing right. There absolutely is. If you can pick who the Giants' number 1 wide receiver will be this season, they're going to shatter their ADP. In my opinion, Tony is the most talented, but they strangely don't seem overly invested in him. It's odd. He's a great talent, and they spent a lot to get him, but it's they just want a reason to trade him away. I don't fully understand it, but in my opinion, if he's on the team, he's the most talented. He should be the best in fantasy. It's just weird that they don't want him. So I recommend just waiting. Similar situation to Sutton and Judy, although with this one, you can be even more, you can be more aggressive in how you wait because there's not only 3 of them that you could end up taking, but also it's the later rounds. And so it's not as much of a risk if you don't get them. You can just afford to sit there and be all right, maybe there's other players I want to try and target. Let's see if one of these guys becomes a round or 2 of value. So basically sit there in the draft, Tony, because this is really between Tony and Galladay. Between Tony and Galladay, whichever one is left on the board, whichever one becomes really good value, I would target them. And if you don't want one of them, or you try and do that and they both go off the board, then you guys know I love Wan'Dale Robinson as a last bench piece since they're clearly invested in him. The only thing I have with him is in a redraft league, like for the majority of you, if you're in like a 16 round redraft hometown league, the odds that you even need to go, like I have Wan'Dale like 20, 25 spots undervalued right now, but the odds that you even need to go there in a redraft league, again, with like just like a casual league, is slim. You probably don't even need to go there. He'll be on free agency, so you probably don't need to target him. He's more like an underdog, when there's 18 rounds, I believe 18 rounds, and it's a little bit more sharp. You might need to go to Wan'Dale Robinson. I think he's a fantastic pick there. So this is probably just Toney and Galladay, unless Toney is traded away, then Wan'Dale shoots up boards. But between those two, I think you got to just find whichever one you think is going to be the lead in the target share. My lean is Galladay, honestly, just for how they, like, again, I said Toney, I think, is the best talent, but I think they just don't value him for some reason. So if Galladay is going to lead this team in target share, he's going to have a pretty deep ADOT. Like, this is going to be a good offense. It's going to be a good offense in the passing game, and I truly believe in this coaching staff, and so I want a piece of the offense. And since they're all free, just take the one that's the most free in your draft. Once we get reports from camps about the expected target share of this team and a lot more reports about how Sterling Shepard is recovering from his injury, I imagine that one or two of these guys are going to see their ADPs just skyrocket. But as of right now, everyone assumes they're going to be terrible and that it's going to be some huge like 5 or 6 man split and that no one's going to be valuable. But I don't think that's going to be the case. And so I see a lot of value in targeting whichever one you think will lead the team in target share because all of them are free. So those are my must-own wide receivers in drafts right now. I'll be back tomorrow to go over the latest ADP changes of the last week, and then Monday for another episode of Mock Draft Monday. And if you want to see my take on more than just like a handful of players, then you can see exactly how I value every single player by heading over to our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. That, my friends, is the end of this one. Hope you all enjoy. If you did, how about hitting the like button? And how about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.